Right.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much. It's such a privilege to be here. I've just been enjoying myself with the worship. I don't know if you need me to say anything else. All that energy, the singing, the dancing, I think that is healthy in itself, right? That's enough. Pastor Bookie, I'm so humbled to be here. Thank you for your invitation. As he said, I come from England, but I actually come from Nigeria. Yes, this is my home. So I want to thank you for inviting me back to my home. Now, when I was watching the women dancing, it was amazing. It was wonderful, and I felt so happy, but a little bit sad. A little bit sad because my wife is not here with me. You know, God blessed me with this beautiful woman, Pamela, who's my wife. You know, I tell you, the other day we were watching something on TV. She was watching the TV, I was watching her, you know. And she said, well, why are you staring at me? I said, well, you look better than the TV, you know. So I know she's watching, so I just want to say, Pamela, honey, I love you, and I will see you soon. Excellent. Now, enough about me. Let's talk about us. Now, I don't know, it's wonderful. The title of today's talk is called Guard Your Heart. Everybody here has a heart, right? Everybody has a heart. I like to talk about this subject, I think, if we move on, because it's part of my Life Colors program. Life Colors really represents how you can reverse all the diseases Pastor Bookie just informed you about. Many of us are living with diseases we don't need to live with. You know, those of us suffering with diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, some of the cancers, we can reverse them and we can prevent them. And I'm going to show you all of this week. Some of you are very young, you don't even think about these diseases, but I guarantee you know somebody who has these diseases. So take note and pass it on. Now, I wonder if anybody knows what this building is. Anybody? Well, it is the Tower of London, and the redness accounts for 880,000 ceramic poppies that were planted. They were planted because they were in memory of World War I. World War I. And so it was the 100th year anniversary. You see, over 880,000 people died from Great Britain in that war. Now, the Americans, I'm going to give you a little bit of history now. The Americans came into the war and ended the war quite quickly. And this man, Woodrow Wilson, was the president. Now, after the war finished, they decided to set up something called the League of Nations. This is the forerunner to the United Nations. And they did it so that they wouldn't go to war again in Europe. Woodrow Wilson suggested it. The Europeans said, yeah, that's a good idea. He went back to America. The Americans said, keep us out of it. We don't want anything to do with it. He said, well, look, if you leave it to the Europeans, they will punish the Germans, and that will be a disaster. Sadly, Woodrow Wilson had a stroke. Do you know anybody who's ever had a stroke? Well, this was a really bad stroke. He couldn't do anything. In fact, his wife was running the country. So he couldn't convince America to join the League of Nations. The League of Nations really punished Germany. They treated them like second-class citizens. And then, of course, along came this man. This man said, we are no longer going to be second-class citizens. We're going to rule Europe for 1,000 years. You know about him, right? Now, the reason why I'm telling you this is because when we talk about health, health is not just about us. My health can affect my family, can affect my community, can affect the country, can even affect the world with Woodrow Wilson's stroke. Sometimes people say to me, Dr. Chidi, it's my life. I can do whatever I want to do. Well, yes, that's true. But when you get sick, who has to look after you? It affects the family. It affects your community. Every person here should look after them health, not just for themselves, but also for the community. Now, let me take you back to life colors. Look, when we are dealing with the heart, I'll go again. The heart is a wonderful, wonderful organ. It starts beating in your chest from the 6 weeks of age and right the way until you die. It takes blood through 60,000 vessels, or 60,000 miles of vessels at 60 miles an hour. It's an amazing, amazing organ, but it can actually go wrong sometimes. Heart disease, you've heard of heart disease. This is what heart disease is. It is when the arteries start to close down, and they close down because of fat and cholesterol and all sorts of things. And when it closes down, you can't get enough blood to your organs and your muscles. Why on earth do we get it? Is it genetic? You may hear this all the time. It's genetic. Well, it's not a good idea to blame your parents for your heart disease. In fact, the World Health Organization tells us that many of us are suffering with hypertension, even over 50 to 60%. You know this gentleman? Well, I use him because he tells us about the first signs of heart disease. You see, if you're like him and you're inactive, you have a poor diet, you are stressed all the time, you're overweight, you're smoking and you're drinking. If you do any of these things, or a combination of these things, you already have heart disease. They have discovered that teenagers already have narrowing of the arteries. Babies, toddlers, already have fatty streaks in the arteries. This is the beginning of heart disease. Now, I want to tell you about a gentleman who's a friend of mine. Like me, he started off as a surgeon, and he took a group of severe patients with heart disease. They could hardly walk 10 meters before getting chest pain. He took them into his home, and he just changed their diet, and actually it started to reverse the heart disease. In fact, this experiment shows that 8 years before the experiment, they had about 49 cardiac events. That means chest pain, heart attack, stroke. When they did the program, none of them, for the next 11 years, had any symptoms at all. Now, when I was a surgeon, I used to do heart bypasses every single day. I think we've lost the connection, that's fine. I used to do heart bypasses every single day. Okay, fantastic. Now this is a wonderful result. Look, they just changed their diet, and you can see the little narrowing there. That was before the diet, and here is after the diet. Now, when I was doing surgery, if I showed my colleagues this and said, well, this is what I did for surgery, they'd say, Chidi, well done, wonderful. This was not surgery. This was just changing one's diet. This opened up the arteries. You understand what I'm saying? You know how difficult it is to open up your heart and do a bypass, and how painful it is and how expensive it is. This was done just by changing the diet. This is miraculous. Today, even when I do it, I still see it as miraculous. So, and it is just by changing your diet into a healthy, plant-based diet. These are the good arteries. You can see this in the middle. That's a wonderful artery that you have. This is where the artery starts to close down with cholesterol. What can we do about it? The Bible says, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it springs the issues of life. Do you know anybody with high blood pressure? Everybody knows somebody, especially in Nigeria, especially in Lagos, you know somebody with high blood pressure. And I'm talking about it because it really is a precursor to heart disease. Now, what does the blood pressure mean? The top number means the maximum pressure in the system when your heart beats the blood out. The bottom number is the pressure in the system when the heart relaxes. Okay, why do we get hypertension? Is it genetic? As I said, don't blame people for what you have. You remember the Garden of Eden, right? God blamed Adam, Adam blamed Eve, Eve blamed the serpent, and the serpent didn't have a leg to stand on. Some of you understand what I mean. But you can't blame your parents. You can't blame... You know, there was one day I was working in an emergency department, and a man had a heart attack the night before, and I saw him lying on the bed, and he had a packet of cigarettes on the bed. And I said, "Oh, you're just keeping those cigarettes just as a memento." He said, "No, doctor, I'm going out for a smoke." I said, "But you just had a heart attack. Do you not want to stop yourself getting another one?" He said, "No, doctor, don't worry. I had a heart attack because my dad had a heart attack. And he had a heart attack because his dad had a heart attack. I was always going to have a heart attack." Blaming the parents. This is not true. You know, if you go to your doctor and he finds out that you have high blood pressure, he will tell you that you have essential hypertension. I know some of you are doctors here, and forgive me, but sometimes doctors give things a long name when they don't know what's going on. You know, it makes us sound intelligent. You know, what is essential? Essential hypertension means that the doctor doesn't know the reason. That's all it means. It's essential. But he will tell you the risk factors for high blood pressure. He will tell you. Family history of hypertension, if you're Afro-Caribbean, male or female in menopause, obese, diabetic, if you smoke, have lots of salt in your diet, lots of stress, and your sedentary lifestyle, meaning no exercise. Look, you don't need to be a doctor to know that the risk factors are in fact the causes. Those risk factors cause high blood pressure. It's that simple. Okay, so if you can eliminate those risk factors, the blood pressure goes away. But 3 of them don't look very fair, do they? If you have a family history of hypertension, does that mean if my dad had it, I'm going to get it? No. You can change your lifestyle. Why should black people have higher blood pressure than everybody else? Why is that? Anybody? Why should that be? Diet? Okay, but you know, everybody's got these strange diets. But it is related to diet, absolutely. Look, why are we black? Why are we black? To protect us from the sun. We live in a beautiful, hot country. It protects us from the sun. There's different things in our bodies that help to protect us from a hot climate. One thing is that we absorb salt a little bit more than the Caucasians and the Asians. So the more salt we absorb, the less sweat we will give out, the less chance we will be dehydrated. So when you go then to a lifestyle that has got lots of salt in it, and by the way, on my journey from the airport here, I saw all these new fast food places that have sprung up since I was last here. I guarantee you they're full of salt, okay? They're not like the traditional food that we're used to. They are filled with salt. Now, why should men have higher blood pressure than women? That is easy to say, isn't it? It's because men live with women. That's the problem, isn't it? No? Okay, one man agrees with me. Some brave men agree. No, this is not the reason. This is not the reason. The reason being is that when women, before menopause, you're releasing all of this estrogen, and that lowers your blood pressure. When you get to the menopause, you don't release as much estrogen, your blood pressure goes up like ours. Okay, so we've talked about the risk factors. We've talked about the causes. I like to say that hypertension isn't really a disease, it's more of a warning. What do I mean by that? Oh, this was my first car. This is my first car. I don't know if any of you recognize it. It's a French car, so obviously it went wrong all the time. When I bought this car, I used every single penny I had to buy the car. I didn't have enough money to put petrol in the car to get home. I had no money left. Sadly, this car didn't work very well from day one. From day one. When I was driving, the warning lights were going off all the time. What could I do? I had no money. I could do nothing about it. In fact, one day, all the lights went off and loads of steam came out from the bumper. I had to stop the car. I had to borrow money to get it towed away and fixed. Very expensive. Blood pressure is like a warning sign because it tells you that you're at risk of much worse diseases. You're at risk of much worse diseases down the line, such as cancer, anxiety, depression, Alzheimer's, irritable bowel syndrome, and inflammatory bowel disease. If you are releasing lots of stress into your system, you are at a high risk of cancer, Alzheimer's, depression, and anxiety. I guarantee it. Now, if we just give you a tablet to lower your blood pressure, we don't deal with any of this. We don't deal with any of this. So, what we have to do is find out how can we reverse the disease. Now, I don't know how much time I have, whether I should pause here and carry on till tomorrow. Pause? Pause? 5 minutes. Okay, thank you very much. All right, let's carry on. This is one of the best definitions of disease you will ever see because it tells you what disease really is. It says, disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the health laws, by Ellen White, Ministry of Healing, one of the best books I've ever read in my life. It tells us that the disease is not the problem. The disease is a response to what we are doing to our bodies. You get a disease because we are violating a certain law. Right, let's see what we mean by that. Because sometimes blood pressure is really essential. What do I mean? What do I mean by that? Now, let's say, because it's true, our brains need 5 liters of blood every single minute. You need 5 liters of blood every single minute. Now, with this artery, that's perfectly fine. No problem. If your artery starts to be clogged up like this one, it becomes narrow. How do you get 5 liters still into the brain from a narrow artery? Well, you have to push the blood through quicker, right? And you push it through quicker by raising your blood pressure. So your body is saying your blood pressure must go up to give your organs enough blood. And then a happy doctor comes along and says to you, your blood pressure's too high, let me give you a tablet to lower your blood pressure. Well, your brain doesn't get enough blood. Your heart doesn't get enough blood. Your lungs don't get enough blood. And that causes more problems. The tablet is not the answer. You have to reverse the disease. Okay. I'm going to skip that because we don't have the time. Obviously, we're talking about a plant-based diet. Greens. Gentlemen, you need to listen to me now, gentlemen. Well, gentlemen and ladies. You see, greens, when you digest greens, it opens up the arteries, okay? It opens up the arteries. Now, I'm sure nobody's heard of this in Nigeria. Erectile dysfunction. It doesn't exist in Nigeria, right? No? Okay, no men are admitting to it. Some of the women are nodding. Okay, fine. All right. Erectile dysfunction is where there's just not enough blood going through. You understand that? So when people come to me to reverse it, I tell them the bad news first. The bad news is that it is worse than you think. Because the erectile dysfunction is just telling you that every artery in your body is closing down to your brain, to your heart. In fact, you have a high risk now of having a stroke or a heart attack in the next 5 years. But the good news is this. If you change your diet and open up those arteries again, this erectile dysfunction goes away. It is reversible. Don't just go for the pill, go for the lifestyle. Many men say to me, Dr. Chidi, I want to reverse my erectile dysfunction, but I don't want to eat rabbit food. Well, there's one thing I'll tell you. Rabbits do not need Viagra, okay? Just remember that, remember that, remember that. Okay, all right. I'm going to end on exercise because obviously we all have to do it. And I was out today walking around, walking over the bridge. We have to get out and exercise every single day. It doesn't matter what job you do, how busy you are. You have to challenge yourself with exercise. And let me end then where I started. Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. Do you know this is a remarkable text from the Bible? The Bible is an amazing health book. This says that what issues out of your heart, which is blood, is life. Blood gives life to the tissues. We didn't know that until the year 1624. People were dying, bleeding out. We didn't know what blood did. Thousands of years before, the Bible told us. But this tells us something even more interesting. It says, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. That's telling me that the issues in my life do not come from my neighbor. They do not come from my spouse or my children. They come from my own heart. If I am going to deal with the issues of life, I need a heart transplant. The sort of one that only Jesus can give. Jesus can change your heart and deal with the issues of life. I will see you tomorrow at the same time. God bless you.